Yes, a very, very warm welcome here from G-Star RAW HQ in Amsterdam. My name's Rolf van Heister from Calico Club. I'm responsible as a co-founder and creative director for the company. And I have a big honor today to introduce a very special project we've done with G-Star RAW and some very special people. So I'd like to introduce Leo, Barbara and Menno today, and we're going to have a conversation about the project we did. So yeah, let's go. Leo, hi.
Hi. Well, I guess I'm the fossil in the room. I'm currently the head of menswear at G-Star, but I have a strong connection to the brand, having worked here in the 2000s. And having seen a large part of the history of the product we're going to talk about today.
Thank you. Then Barbara?
My name is Barbara. I've been working at G-Star for the last year and a few months. Have a big passion for the brand, and I'm heading the denim men's and women's for the brand.
Thank you. Menno?
My name is Menno. I founded my first denim company in 2008, Tenue Denim. But I started selling jeans, I guess, at the age of 16. Always been admiring G-Star, looking up to all those cool salespeople that would visit the store that I worked for back in the day. I guess the brand also inspired me to found my own denim company, Tenue Jeans, and I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you. Well, obviously, not very obviously, but obviously the Elwood is coming back. And we're extremely proud to present 3 different Elwoods we've made with a fantastic team. But to give it a bit more depth, I want to ask you, Leo, where did it all start? The Elwood, please take us with you in your journey.
Well, you know what? Where it started for me personally, right? I mean, I've always been a great admirer of this brand, but I think the moment I first came into contact with the Elwood, I was working at a company in Italy I'm not going to name, but part of this whole denim resurgence of the 90s and casual wear, when casual wear was on the front of Face magazine and it was the big thing. And I remember I was working in Italy and somebody had been on a research trip and they brought this jeans in. And we're in this big warehouse building where we used to design, and they threw it on the floor. And then all the designers in the room, we came and we circled around this jeans. And we were thinking of all the reasons that we hated it. And that's a common thing with designers, because we were a little bit jealous. Because basically, it was the Elwood. I think it was the year after it launched. And it was one of the first kind of really, they did their raw denim executions of it, much like some of the example we're going to see here. And you know, at the time, it was one of those things where you thought, why didn't I think of that? Because basically, in the 90s, there was this brand in Paris called Meurs François Gerbeau, and they were doing all this crazy stuff with denim. And you'd always go as a designer and look at it and think, yeah, that's cool, but that's just a niche thing. And all of a sudden, this brand had taken this idea of making a non-denim garment in denim and brought it to the masses. And actually in a really cool way, because basically what they'd done and what G-Star was kind of famous for at the time, was that they had taken a motorcycle pant and made it in denim, essentially. Now, like I say, I was working in Italy. I was part of this kind of old school. If you know the Goldie, Goldie, Replay, Diesel, Chippy, Chevignon. It was this kind of casual wear based in the south of Europe, you know, Italy and France. And G-Star was kind of the newcomer to the game. Even though the historical designer of it, Pierre Morisset, actually had a big history in this whole world. But G-Star came a little bit afterwards, and it brought a couple of new things to the game. One of them was this idea of making non-denim garments in denim, so like pea coats, things like this, military jackets. And the other thing is that they were kind of Euro-centric. So where we were all kind of inspired by Americana, they were very much inspired by European workwear. And part of the reason for that is that the historic kind of the figurehead designer at that time, Pierre Morisset, he was living in the south of France. So, you know, they'd be making it in the Netherlands, but he'd be living down there, living a beautiful life in the south of France with much better weather. He'd come up here two weeks every 6 months, dump his designs here and run back.
Just from there, just a short break. Your workwear, can you explain that for me and our listeners slash viewers? Because I think that's a very important difference comparing to what you explained before. Can you explain that again?
Sorry, so
can you give that a bit more depth?
The European workwear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, basically, there are some things that we're all very familiar with, even subliminally. So, like if you think of jeans jackets, you have the Lee Storm Rider with the zigzag stitches up the front, or you have the Levi's Trucker with the twin seams up the front. You know, these are things that we know even when we don't know. There's just this subliminal language of denim. And where they often took inspiration was from, for their denim jackets, for their shirts, for their pants, is from French workwear. So like toile de chine, sateen, French worker sateen. So not the denim that everybody else took their inspiration from. So it has a slightly different vibe. So where a lot of Western workwear has these kind of the arc yoke and things like this, you know, the pointed yoke that we all associate with denim. French workwear is more industrial, kind of more, it's more kind of straightforward, basically.
Different fit.
Yeah, it's a different fit, and it's also a different vibe. It's like, it's really got an industrial feeling to it. You could almost imagine it as much in the factory as in the fields, whereas there's a more decorative sense to American workwear. So yeah, that's kind of this difference where it lies.
From there on, back to Mr. Morisset.
Yeah. Well, Morisset, you know, he's quite a character. You know, Morisset, Pierre, half the time, I mean, he'd have us laughing all the time. I worked with him in the 2000s, and he's quite a character. You know, he started his career in the 1990s, and even the tail end of the 1980s, he was in Fiorucci, for example, which is, you know, if you take Calvin Klein and Fiorucci, that's that period in which people are thinking we can take workwear and military clothing and denim and make it an elevated product. Yeah. So rather than just selling people the commodity that you find in hardware stores at the time, we're going to sell them something more elevated and curated. And he was part of that phenomenon. It's kind of pop art meets workwear. and so he kind of got his schooling in that period. And yeah, so this kind of very colorful, also the kind of the looseness of that fashion, because fashion up to that time had been very uptight and kind of stiff. Even the kind of cool stuff, and there was this kind of playfulness about everything. Like I say, I think pop art and the New York scene had a lot to do with it. So you got Calvin Klein, as I said, and you know, with their jeans adverts, and you've got this whole Italian phenomena. And he came from there, and basically he came to G-Star at a point in his career where he'd learned an awful lot, but now he wanted to apply it to a big brand. Well, G-Star wasn't so big when he arrived, but it certainly was big when he left. And I mean, the story of the Elwood itself is basically, as he told it, is that he was traveling on a motorway somewhere, I think in Germany, and he saw a guy, it was raining, and they pulled off the motorway to get something to eat, and they were in this service station getting something to eat, and this motorcyclist pulled in, and he'd been driving through the rain. He was soaking wet, and he got off his bike, and he was kind of been in this crouched position on the motorbike in the rain, and when he got off the bike, his leathers, they were just pre-formed into this kind of, he could barely stand up, so he was walking around like a monkey kind of thing, you know. And Pierre apparently got the idea for this jeans inspiration for the denim, and for this pre-formed kind of 3D pose that the Elwood has, because for those of you who don't know, I mean, the thing about the Elwood is the shaping around the knee, essentially. That's one of the biggest features of it, which gives it this stance. One thing, it gives it a stance when you're wearing it, which is really cool. But the other thing is that it gives it a stance even when it's hanging. When you hang up a pair of original Elwoods, because what's like interesting about that,
like this, you know,
it's like a sculpture almost, and it's really clever also, because at that time they were promoting this idea of raw denim, which was also quite unique to G-Star RAW. That's where the name comes from, you know. And the problem with raw denim is that if you take a classic denim style, it's going to be flat as a board. So it doesn't really look lived in. Now the trick of Elwood is that because it's got this 3D shaping, even before it's even been worn once, it looks like it's been worn for like, you know, a few days. So you can hang one up in your store and it's hanging there with this kind of evil crouch. I spent 5 years of my career designing motorcycle clothing for racing. And all that clothing, it's all about preformed shaping. The arms come in like this because you're on the bike like this. And so those garments, even when they're hanging, they're kind of, the arms are twisted round forward and the legs are bent and pointing inwards. And so it gives this kind of dynamism to the garment, even when it's before you've even worn it. And the Elwood had that really neat kind of feel to it. You know, so this 3D thing, although it's part of the design, the kind of the feel of the design, it also gives a character to the garment even when it's not being worn. Which, yeah, and I mean, that's what's sitting here on this table, of course. And I think, you know, that whole story, that's when we come round to today. And, you know, Pierre created this amazing product. And he really revolutionized in many ways our industry because he really brought a new point of view on denim. And so we come to today and the modern day, and what are we doing with it now?
Yeah, I just have one question I think Barbara can answer.
Yeah.
Because I always hear those completely bizarre numbers G-Star sold on this denim. You can answer that, I think.
I don't want to answer the wrong answer, so I'd rather not answer the answer.
I think
Do
it
you
was
have
70
the numbers?
million.
Well,
They
yeah,
did say it did come around, but I didn't want to say that number because I don't know. But it's incredible. It built the brand.
It built the brand.
It built the
for
brand.
Sure.
The Elwood was initially made in actually non-denim fabric. It was made in a beautiful canvas that we have showing downstairs for the launch, and that would keep that shape that you're talking about. And then they realized that they wanted to do something with denim that would celebrate the brand because it was a denim brand. And then they turned it into denim, and that became the 70 million that you're talking about, that we don't know if it's actually the number, but probably it is very close.
Approximately.
Approximately.
Yeah, and not only that, but it created a whole design language of the company around 3D denim in general, and then a number of other styles were born from that.
I would say not just of the company, I would say a lot of brand took a lot of inspiration from the Elwood itself, not just from the brand, but really from the Elwood to build other brands from the form, the idea of this 3D and the fact that you could shape a pair of jeans without actually putting it on was so new. And and
what was your first interaction with the product?
Well,
when was it?
I'm not very far from Leo, like to be honest. I'm Italian, so I was in Italy as well. Not working properly at the time, but definitely like developing my denim knowledge just by buying amazing jeans everywhere I could. I always had since I was a kid, I would buy secondhand jeans everywhere. And then this thing happened where suddenly I see all these boys wearing this 3D jean and I got so jealous and I'm like, I need to have that jean. I was pretty young and I put some money aside and I managed to buy my first Elwood, and that was my first ever dream jean, like expensive, elevated, and I just remember how innovative it felt. But then when I started designing, Elwood was still, and G-Star was really in the early days, explosion, and all you talk about the fashion in these days were turning into casual wear more than actual really, and that made a big impact on me because I've always been very casual myself. So when I started designing, Elwood and G-Star were very much into, you know, the brand I would aim to work one day for. So this really happened.
And now you're working here.
And I've been working here for a year, and as soon as I joined, in the name of this incredible, like the impact that had on me in the early days, and also because I think fashion is in a similar stage right now, where, you know, we look down to then make things up, if you know what I mean. We look at the street to create really amazing products. I think it's the really good time again to talk about Elwood and to talk about this sort of form, body, it's a moment in fashion where people are experimenting a lot. And as soon as I joined the brand, I thought, it was the right time to relaunch the Elwood. And talking about the specific launch, we did relaunch the original in our main collection, the main original pant that would be exactly the same with the main features like Leo explained. We have the pads on the front and then some protection double fabric. We have the heel pads on the back, very beautiful, and the pads on the back pocket, on the crotch on the back, and those are the main features of the Elwood. What we did for this collection was reissuing the old Elwood, exactly how it was, like the original, and then create the future Elwood. And we created the loose, Elwood loose, which I think is really stands for years to come, the style itself. If I can take one garment and talk about...
Yeah, that was my next question.
Yes.
Because I think it's a half a year ago when we had our first conversation with the team. And that was the moment that they asked me, okay, Rolf, you have to come up with a mood.
Yes.
And I took a picture from Matthew L. Williams from Alix, and he made a beautiful wash for Givenchy.
Yeah.
And we had a conversation about that, and you came up with an analysis I found really heartwarming. As well, is this a mommy's wash?
Yeah.
So please explain about that, because that was something really...
It's actually the jean I'm wearing today. So there is an old school way of washing jeans, which people don't do anymore. But when the jeans were all around 13 ounce, which means extremely heavy denim and mostly 100% cotton, mom would just take your jean and throw it in the washing machine without caring too much of putting it inside out. Now we have a lot of care labels and everybody explains how to wash your jeans. Where in the olden days, my jeans, including my jeans, they were just thrown in the washing machine at 80, 90, 100 degrees. And what happened is that the jean actually gets really crinkled and wrinkled inside the washing machine in this heavy temperature. And what happens is that you get this really random lines and this effect that the jean actually shrunk a bit too much. And it has this, and only by wearing it again, it will go back to its shape and its form. But the actual wash effect is this one. So we call it the 20 mum washes.
20 mum washes.
So mommy washed it 20 times without caring about which side it should go in the washing machine, and then you get these amazing lines. The great thing about this specific one was that we decided to use a very authentic, a 13-ounce Japanese denim, which will hold that shape and will create the lines that we're talking about. So
we have 3 washes specifically for this collaboration together, and I think you're completely the right person to give the people a few features about what we did, because from there on we have a fantastic campaign made here in this beautiful building, but I think we have to start with the source. So please give us a short explanation about the features, the key features.
Would you like to stand up?
I'm going to stand.
Please stand up, because I think that you wear it really in a great way.
I have to sit like
that. So as we said, the Elwood has this amazing feature of like holding the shape when you wear it. So if you wear it really baggy, like the knee stays up, and a lot of people like to wear it really baggy like this, and you keep the knee shape. One thing that is very interesting is in the pattern of the Elwood, which is the back panel is shorter than the front panel. So what happens is that this part, this line here, which is a feature of the jean itself, stays pulls the jean up. So what happens is that when you hang it, it has the same visual effect. So it stays shorter. We have the heel pads in the back, which is a feature that in this case, we enhanced and created the leather look, but this is a later drop, right?
Just to interrupt, I'm really proud of this.
Yeah, the 96.
The 96, but on a different spot.
Yeah, exactly.
Because where was it in the past? I'm going to sit for a
Yes,
second.
of course.
Where was it in the past? Because in the past, all the people know it from, I think, here.
Yes, exactly. So what happened is that the jean was actually launched firstly in 1996, and then it made this, it built the brand, and then in 2006, there was the 10-year anniversary, and to celebrate the 1996 time, this big embroidery was embroidered on the side of the jeans. So we have a few hanging in the office, which are the ones that actually explain the history of the embroidery. What we did with this Elwood loose was actually playing with some features which were really let's say true to the brands in the early 2000s, so we didn't lose that early 2000 vibe, which I think for me is absolutely important. I'm gonna unroll one of these just to show better. So the original Elwood comes with 2 pockets, for example, and but in the 2006 there was one edition made with 1 pocket, and this was a featured design from that era as well. So the flat pocket with the V detail, and the cinch back, which is something that in denim we were discussing last season when we building the new collections. The cinch back is something that has not been seen in a while, so it feels very new again. There is this feeling I have about this jean that it feels really old school and it feels really new, and because we upgraded the shape into something extremely loose and cool and skater, then somehow the combination feels modern and new at the same time. We decided to develop this lovely label that obviously has got some stitching, so in the future a consumer can take it off if they want. But then obviously you have the collaboration label also printed in 3D on the jean. This is a wonderful, it's actually the same denim that comes later, but is washed by mum 20 times, so it has this fantastic sort of wash effect.
What I found, and that's something I like to add, is because one of my favorite pens of G-Star is one of the pens of Mark Newson.
Yeah.
We bought that collection for a couple of times in the period he collaborated with G-Star, and it was just, finger-licking good when I have to say. And I mentioned that wash you made right there with those white. Beautiful stitching. It was, for me, that was one of the greatest G-Star pens I've ever bought.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy that you made it this way, because I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Leo wears it today, obviously.
Yeah.
That fresh blue, I mean, it's worth pointing out, that of course Mark Newson, Australian industrial designer, created that collection in the 2000s that was way ahead of its time, and is still, when we get young designers who come here and go down into the archive, they're blown away by it, because they just can't believe it's from that era, because it looks like something you might do now. So,
and back in those days you also made those beautiful books, and Mark Newson would completely kill it. I still have a few of those in my archive.
And that freshness. At the time, he was a superstar designer. He did the Ford concepts cars, and the Apple designs. And the Apple interiors of their stores, and
he brought in one of the collections that we have downstairs in the archive. You can really see that like industrial sort of design skills. Like he applied some tapes, for example, on raw edge denim, and he highlighted. We also have an Elwood with that sort of idea. He highlighted all the outline of the jean, one of the collection, with this like beautiful highlight tape in orange, in white.
A kind of cartoon sensibility, like drawing a line around a garment.
But then with the tape. And we have them in the archive. It's funny because I talked about that garment just a few weeks ago with someone else, and it's one of my favorite garments in the archive from G-Star, because it has that. I love when modern things or something that really doesn't fit within what you're doing, that suddenly fits in and it creates magic. And this is exactly what happened with those collections.
And I mean, nowadays, he's got a studio together with Jonathan Ive. And those boys are doing their work together. So it's kind of really at the forefront of industrial design of the last 20 years, you know. So, and I like the freshness, as you say, the white buttons, this kind of just unashamed simplicity.
Absolutely. Talking about freshness and magic, we have Menno right here.
Freshness and magic.
Full of freshness, full of magic.
You know, obviously, Menno, we talked about 1996, the early 2000s. Tenue denim, you saw everything come and go, and yeah, we are friends for a long, long time, and I'm really honored that you are here to talk about jeans, denim, and what Elwood meant for the market. Well, you mentioned as first your inspiration was G-Star. Please come back on that. Where did it all start? Where did you saw that first Elwood?
Well, I mean, I know that I even think that Pierre had a vintage shop or a store in Maastricht before he was starting his designs.
That's how he started his career, exactly.
Yeah. So I'm not so surprised that most of his later designs, could be brought back to vintage garments. I think it's a super interesting insight that I never realized that he was looking at European workwear a lot more than, well, the other workwear somewhere in the Midwest. But it's a very nice insight. And what I first of all think is so awesome about everything that G-Star did, and in particular Pierre in those days, is that he was applying denim to all kinds of new things, and showing that denim with his collaborations with Land Rover and all those crazy brands.
Cannondale, all the
Prouvé chairs in denim. It couldn't be crazy enough. And I think the way he dared to make and take denim into something modern has always been a true source of inspiration for me, because I think at one point we were so tired of all the Americana. It was a song that we heard just too many times. And then, bringing this brand to market, I was super proud to be Dutch. I still know the first time that I was in New York, going through Manhattan for the first time, which is already quite impressive if you've never been there. And then all of a sudden I noticed that waiting at the sidewalk, I saw a guy in a G-Star pant, and I was honestly proud of the fact that I was also Dutch, and that was a super cool looking dude in New York, early 2000s, rocking a pair of G-Star jeans. And back in the day, I was working in a denim store, obviously, and so we really, those G-Star guys, they were rock stars to us. If those guys would enter that shop, everybody would go silent, as if
Why?
Well, I mean, they were the guys. They were the guys, and those were the guys you wanted to be.
Okay.
The beautiful thing was that I was working with Morisset, Pierre's son, back in those days, and we were totally killing it. We were developing our taste in music. We were developing our taste in denim and fashion. I mean, it was cool for us, right? And those G-Star guys, they seemed to know everything. They had access to the right design, they had access to the right cars, they had access to the right vintage watches. It was just ridiculous. You wanted to be at G-Star, you know? And I think what I really take out that time is that it was, in fact, the first brand to me that modernized denim. And actually created a new narrative. And of course, everybody takes their inspiration from somewhere. But what really intrigues me is the way that G-Star reshaped denim. And to me, that's something that I hope that other brands and also G-Star will continue to do for the next few. Because I think there are certain aspects of denim that we've seen enough now.
Yeah.
In particular, connected to the whole Americana game. But, you know, I also remember the way that they would take, admirals' jackets and you know, crazy new designs in that.
Long parkas.
But it's a really good point. Because it really connects to something Barbara said as well earlier. I mean, the fact that all of a sudden in the 1990s, there's a cover of a magazine where people are saying that the leadership of fashion is coming from young kids on the street and not anymore from the top end, you know, which is what currently is going on again.
That's happening.
But this modernity, now that's something else. And those old brands, now they're the legacy brands, like Diesel, like Replay, like Chippy, Chevignon, all these brands. What I always say G-Star was a second generation brand because it came after that and introduced a new idea. And we used to call it forbidden combination, what you're saying there. The idea of integrating something new with something old. And never just going for the easy win of just replicating something, but taking two things and integrating them together. I think that's really the secret of the design.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes people totally miss it in combining two things and then trying to make even something better. I think it's quite dangerous to take a Bouvet chair and wrap it in denim, because you can go totally wrong there.
Yeah.
But they bloody did it. You know, and I think that's also sort of the mystery, that if you still walk around here, but especially when I was a lot younger, it was intimidating. You know, you just felt that this was an army, and you wanted to be part of that army.
There was if you were going to any fair, like trade fairs, for example, the famous bread and butters. Like I will never forget my first bread and butter, where you pass, everyone's very casual in their stand, and then you pass in front of G-Star, and there was this army of people like dressed in these uniforms, standing there with their arm, like you're saying, with all this 3D denim, all raw. They were a bit frightening as well. Like there was something.
Barbara didn't mention the parties, because
yes,
it knocks off. So
really good parties.
We're not going to mention them either.
but my final question, because we have to think about the time as well, is obviously denim and jeans have a big momentum in the fashion market. I'm really curious about your thoughts, because we have a lot of people who are watching and thinking about, okay, I think they want to know how you think about that momentum. How can you place that in a sort of historic perspective, and what's going to happen when it comes to jeans in the upcoming years? What do you think? What's going to happen?
It's a very interesting question, because I think that in this matter also sustainability comes in the talk. Like how much do you produce, how much do you buy from second hands, for example, is a very delicate topic to talk about. But there is a lot of that coming. In front of us, like there is a lot of resale projects that take old jeans and put them back in the market, and so that's, let's say, future of denim. But from what I see, brand-wise, and what brands are creating, I think is extremely exciting at the moment. I have the feeling that everyone's thinking out of the box. Like we said, in the early 2000s is a very similar moment in history. I think it might be a little bit of scarcity. I don't know what it is. A little bit of people need a change, and because denim is so dear to people everywhere, like everyone wears jeans, then somehow this is one of the first things that is changing with the time that we're living, and just seeing also the last catwalk, or whatever is happening, is extremely interesting.
Menno.
Well, if I can elaborate to that, I believe we suffered from a lot of crises. There's been a pandemic. There's war going on, and the intriguing thing is that people go back to what they know, and a pair of jeans is just part of your.
It's a comfort zone.
Well, I mean, you need to go back to what you know, where you feel comfortable, and also in relation to sustainability. Although denim suffered from a bit of an identity crisis, being related to throwaway fashion, I think a pair of jeans, especially the way it's presented here, can take you on the streets for the next decade to come. So in that respect, there's no such thing as a non-sustainable pair of jeans, because this jean will not leave you alone. In fact, this pair of jeans will probably outlive us, because it's so incredibly made. And is this a natural indigo, by the way?
Yes, this is natural indigo.
So there you have my preference. But it's an iconic color. It's a very iconic design. It's something to be proud of. It'll just make every day a lot better when you step into it in the morning, right?
Then Leo, I want to give you the honor for the final answer today.
Well, I have to say they're great compliments to the answers from the other guests, because I think, often, you know, we have a fantastic archive downstairs. And when I take people down there, I have to emphasize, first of all, it's an archive of functional clothing. Not fashion, but function. And I think the beauty of denim is, as both of the other guests have said perfectly, is the fact that, you know, the beauty of functional clothing, of denim is built to last. And I remember my own career, you know, even before the Elwood, coming to Amsterdam in '95, going to some club somewhere, and then ending up in the evening in my blue leather jacket, sat on the floor, smoking a lot of cigarettes, chatting to somebody. And that idea that if you've got your denims on, you can do anything, you know? It's not like with your, you know, it'll survive anything. And I mean, I think that obviously, looking forward towards sustainability, one thing to have a fabric like denim. It's no coincidence that it became the kind of statement that it is, because while things come and go, and sometimes something will become fashionable and then will disappear, but the reason people come back to denim is because it's purely functional, you know? So it's always going to have a sense, and of course, and you brought up the discussion of indigo, the beauty of a fabric that ages and develops over time.
Exactly.
And it's very difficult to think how you would substitute that with something else, you know. So while it may change and it may modernize and it may, you know, it will develop over time, and I hope it does. But, you know, that's the beauty of it. And I always say, when I'm looking to that archive downstairs, we got an archive of functional clothing from the 50s, from the 30s, whatever. But really, it's an open door to looking at the future and how we're going to develop clothes for the future when, indeed, as Menno said, we exit from this fast fashion cycle, and we have to make products that are going to last. How do you do that? They have to have a certain timeless quality that means that what's fashionable this year is not unfashionable the next. And they need to have certain intrinsic qualities. And one thing we learn, and obviously these guys don't need to be told, but is that a lot of what we considered to be the legacy of denim, old school denim, becomes more relevant again. You know, the old looms, the old ways of dyeing, the old ways of spinning. You know, fashion became very fast, the machines became very fast, and now we go back to narrow looms, we go back to slow knitting machines, you know, loop wheeler machines. There's a realization that effectively it's slow fashion again.
Let's build to last.
Quality over
Imagine
speed.
we watched it 20 times.
But I still think that this garment, because it's raw, and because when you and I will start wearing it, it will create a very different look in a year from now. And I think that becomes such a personal thing. And then the real beauty is there, because then it's my pant that I created, rather than something that is created for me. Right?
The fingerprint.
Exactly. And then it's such a personal thing that you will always, you will cherish the relationship you built with it. You will like secretly mark your memories inside of it, and it will not just let you down.
Absolutely.
I think that's a perfect end. Let's mark memories with denim. And let's do that together. I want to say thank you to all our viewers and listeners, because we're going to mark memories in the very near future. Thursday, 26th of October, we're going to launch the collaboration G-Star RAW x Calico Club. Thank you for listening. I'd really like to thank Barbara, Leo and Menno for come here at G-Star RAW in Amsterdam HQ, and let's go. See you guys soon, and let's create memories. Thank you guys.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.